Next week's presentation is Keith Lindauer, Earthships and Rainwater Harvesting, a gateway to sustainable living. Earthships are off-grid homes constructed from recycled and repurposed materials generally discarded from society. Old car tires, glass bottles, aluminum cans are the primary building blocks of these homes. They're powered by the sun, heated and cooled by the Earth's abundant and free energy sources, with all domestic water harvested from the rain and snowmelt. So earthships are affordable to build and attractive and perhaps the healthiest homes you can build. So renegade architect Mike Reynolds, aka the Garbage Warrior, is father of the earthship and the gladiator for change and salvation of the planet. I am a soldier, Keith is a soldier in Mike's army, and we'll show you what earthships are and how they operate. Now, today's discussion is provided by the Lago de Chapala Toastmasters Club. The club meets here at LCS every Monday evening at 7 p.m. The goal of the Toastmasters organization worldwide is to provide a supportive learning environment with the purpose of helping members improve communication and leadership skills. Our presenters are Alfredo Pérez Aldana, who is a native of Guadalajara and is the current Director of Education at LCS. Alfredo has been a member of Toastmasters for 6 months. Marissa Urrutia Martinez is a founding member of the club. She's a native of Monterrey, Mexico, and has lived in the Chapala area for the past 17 years. We also have Sarana Donaldson, is a native of northeastern United States and has lived in San Antonio Tlyacapan for 5.5 years. And Sarana has been involved in Toastmasters for 8 years. Their topic is facing our stereotypes together, and they are encouraging audience participation. So please give a very warm open circle welcome to the Toastmasters.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for showing up for this very important topic that affects all of us, because we have the wonderful luxury of living in a multicultural location in paradise. So, to start off the discussion, I would like to ask anybody who is not from Mexico if you knew a Mexican before you moved here. If you did, please raise your hand. Wow. About a little more than half of you knew a Mexican before you moved down here. That's contrary to surveys that say most Americans, I don't know about Canadians, only 30% know a Mexican person. So you guys had a jump on most of them before you moved down here. I personally had never really met a Mexican before I moved here. And that didn't dissuade me from coming, even though there were so many stereotypes in my head about what Mexican people are like. And I'm going to list a couple, and Alfredo's going to write them down, but then I want the audience to tell me the stereotypes you heard before you came. So, number one, Mexicans are lazy. We all know that image of a Mexican man sitting on the side of the road with the sombrero pulled down. Also, that they are all poor. You hear that all the time, that Mexicans are all poor. And that it's a very violent culture. How about other stereotypes, good or bad, that we heard about Mexicans before we moved down here? Yes?
Wet back.
What?
Wet back.
Wet back. Well, that's a slur. I'm not sure. Yes? That Mexicans don't like people north of the border. Okay?
Hardworking.
Hardworking.
Very family oriented.
Very family oriented, that's correct.
Religious.
Religious.
Love music. Love music.
Wonderful music.
Loud.
Loud. In fact.
Humble. They're humble.
Humble. Wow. Alfredo's having trouble keeping up. This is a great, great list. Yes, one last one.
Creative.
Creative.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I asked this question of our Toastmasters club, so I want to make sure I got honest. Honest was another one that came up from an expat at our Toastmasters club, or Mexican. going to pass it over to Marissa, who is a Mexican, to inform us about the stereotypes that they had of us before we came in.
I hope you still love me a day. When we came to live here 17 years ago, my husband and my 3 little kids, 12 little kids, I was astonished. And I was like, yes, this is a great place. Because Americans make a very good job about coloring this wonderful town. Every house from windows was painted of Mexican color. Have you noticed that? Gardens, but activities, art activities. It was art classes for kids everywhere. Watercolors here Saturdays, painting, sculpture, and a lot of activities for adults too. Organization, having fundraisings for everything, to help people, to help Mexican people that really is in a need. That does not happen around Mexico. And I have lived in about 7 cities around Mexico country. And I was like, how does they do that? They already have enough money because they are rich, right? In order to rest. Why they spend that amount of time and effort and energy to do that? That was wonderful for me. But when I said, oh, this is full of art, I want my kids to have a violin classes or piano classes or oracle classes. And my husband said, yes, but just be careful. Remember, where is the artists, people need some inspiration. And I said, how come? Of course not, they are all people. They cannot do that. And then I discovered that that's why this is the more important plaza for the narcos, right? So, to get involved with this, what really transformed my life is to be part of Toastmasters group, which is an American association that changed all over the world. All over the world, the self-esteem, the raise your voice, and to learn how to work together. Then I understand why you know how to do things together, because you really work for the good of everyone, and that is something that we need. Mexicans, thank you. Mexicans, for our story, for our perception, because we were conquered. We were not the conquerors, but we were conquered. We were suppressed in our emotions and in our culture. They tell us for so many years that we were not enough, that we were not enough intelligent. That's why we developed this thing about malinchismo. You know the story? Raise your hands if you know the story about Malinche. It's a great story. It's about this Mexican lady or indigenous lady when Hernán Cortés came to conquer us, and she was the lover of him, and she prefers foreign things than local things, and that's what we call each other in Mexico. Oh, you are so malinchist. You prefer things from outside than inside, right? So it's in order to understand our point of view. So we don't believe in our political system because they never do something good with us. You have good streets, you have good swimming pools, publics, you have tennis courts for free. We don't have this development human being. So that's why don't follow the rules. Follow the rules. It's hard for us to follow the rules, to see more forward why the rule is for, why the rule is good, why the rule is peace for us. We need to change that, and that's why you have been very important for this community and for the rest of Mexicans that is in touch with you. So when some Mexicans have the opportunity, because it's not easy to travel for us, and when we have the opportunity to travel outside Mexico, to the north, or even fewer than to Europe, we prefer to travel there than South America. Because it's like our goal, right? This is kind of status, kind of, I want to learn something good, no? Then, when we start to travel outside, then we start to realize why rule is so good, why working community is good, why put the money and be honest with the money is good, pay taxes is good. When you give to someone that can handle the taxes for a good, right? So it's about understand each other. It's about to recognize that some of us, you or me, we are ignorant, and we need to develop this knowledge about really deeply know each other. And I would like to stop.
Stereotypes listed on the left about Mexican people. I think we need to add a few more on the right. So what are some, oh, we have a hand already. What's a stereotype about
Arrogant.
expats?
Arrogant. Monolingual.
Okay, hold on, we had someone in the back. We're going by hand raising. Yes, sir.
Comfort days is very important, and time is money.
Time is money. And monolingual, yes, sir. Pushy.
Impatient.
Impatient, yes.
Dopers.
Dopers. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry? Prude. Rude, okay. Entitled. Racist. Wow. Coming from the gringos in the room, we had an awful lot of negatives. But I did, again, ask my Toastmasters club, which had more Mexicans in attendance there than here, and some of the stereotypes they said were generous. We have loud up there already, loud. Overly patriotic. Hardworking, wealthy, friendly, and everyone owns a gun. So this whole board begs the question, if 70% of Americans don't know a Mexican, where do these stereotypes come from? And I'm sure immediately when I say media, you're all going to nod your head. But I actually have statistics to back that up. Alfredo, thank you. So UCLA did a study in 2012 of 3,000 people of their impressions of Mexicans based on what they see in movies and television. And I'm going to read this in case you in the back can't see it. 71% of portrayals of Mexicans in U.S. media are criminals. If they have a job, 64% of the men are portrayed as gardeners, and 61% of the women are portrayed as maids. Not a very positive portrayal. And 40% of all the Mexicans that they see in the media are portrayed as a dropout, so uneducated. But to me, actually, more disturbing than all of that was that only 7% of the people could recall a Mexican being portrayed in a professional situation as a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, or a teacher. So, I mean, they couldn't even conjure up seeing a Mexican in a professional job. What negative portrayal of a whole country of people we see in the movies and in television. And unfortunately, I can't speak for Canada, but the U.S. government supports this image by sending out these notices about how dangerous it is to come down here. And we've all seen they show up right before spring break. When families and college students are going to come down to celebrate their their break from work and school, that they're told it's not safe down there.
It's the same thing in Canada.
And in
It's all the
Canada?
same thing, yes.
Okay, I didn't know that. Not as much, but. Now, Alfredo's going to explain to us where Mexicans get their stereotypes about Americans. Thanks, Alfredo.
There are two main sources where we get this information, and so I hope you don't hate me after what I'm going to say. I'm going to say bad things. And one is Hollywood works really hard to teach us cliches about you. So it is your own country doing it somehow. So I remember when I was a kid watching a movie with superheroes, and it is USA, the savers of the world, the ones that are chosen by God to fix the world because it's broken. The ones that, like they mentioned already, they carry a gun as it was a cell phone nowadays. That another thing that I learned in those movies is they are the only ones who know with the right morals, and the rest of us is wrong. So we need to learn that. So, and also you have relatives that go NOB to live in USA, for example, and when they come and visit you, they tell you the bad things they go through. So that reinforces the idea that people from USA are evil, and we grow up with that. I'm generalizing, of course, but we grow up with that. So we are just expecting some rudeness from you. Probably you are not rude. You are the way you are because it's your culture and it's fine. It's just different from us. But we're expecting something bad from you because of two things. These teachings we get since we are kids, and the second part is our own inheritance of not being enough for anything. Not being enough for anything. So when it comes about education, for example, we have very good universities. Not everybody goes to university, probably they cannot afford it. And those who can, try to leave the country, for example, or they also become part of reinforcing the classes of the country. The classes, I'm sorry, I'm a lot nervous. Okay, so that reinforces these things. So when I moved in here, I started seeing some of those cliches on some of you, but I also realized that other cliches were not there. It was just they were just in my imagination. And now that I have a class, for example, that teaches about these things, I realize it's not that way, but it's me. What about the other Mexicans that have these ideas about you? And I know you are not bad people. Nobody is bad people. Nobody is bad people. Nobody is bad people. We just have our own histories, stories behind us, and we carry them around. Always our 5 minutes of not being that nice always, and sometimes we just throw stuff out. So, there are a few things that I would like to say that will help you somehow to get along better with Mexicans. Because one thing is for sure, we are not going to change. And we are not expecting you to change. No, I don't believe in mixing. I believe in cooperation. But to cooperate with your neighbor, you need to know your neighbor. And there's another thing that we think about, another cliche, is that gringos are somehow afraid of us. Because probably we don't have the class they portrayed when they moved in here. Because probably the same thing they are trying to take from us. You know, there are actually here in town, half of the town at least, I would dare to say that, and I can say it in front of other Mexicans. They think that gringos steal from them. And I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about space, I'm talking about restaurants, I'm talking about houses, I'm talking about roles, and I'm talking about whatever you want to talk about. And it somehow becomes a problem. But again, we Mexicans don't say no, so probably we won't tell you to your face that. We will just smile, turn around and say, and we continue with our lives. That's another thing, we have flexibility. That's another cliche. For us, gringos are not flexible. Is there way or no way?
Yeah.
And for us, it's like, oh yeah, whatever. We continue with our life, you know, but it somehow causes this separation. So again, just as a brief part of this, we learned that from Hollywood, and we learned that from our relatives that come from NOB and tell us these stories that they suffer there. But we also know that they suffer there because they decided to go there illegally. So it's also hard. So, you know, it always has the good and the bad part of it. Right?
Well, the immigration of Mexicans to the U.S. has gone down a great deal. I get a formal research study. It's gone way, way down. Every year that I've been here, the 14 years, it's gone down. So there are fewer Mexicans going to the United States, and I think it's because there are better opportunities here.
Yeah, well, they don't want to go through that anymore. Generations are changing, and we see even our kids now, and they're totally different from what I was when I was a kid, for example. And I was a kid 2 days ago, you know. So anyway, that's part of the negative part. But it's not only that. I know that. But these are not cliches. These are things I've been discovering here. And this is what Marissa shared a moment ago. Oh my God, you joined to a lot of groups and clubs and help. And we are not used to that. We say that we are a collective culture as Mexicans, and that we respect the group, and we will adjust ourselves to the group, because for us it's important to be liked and to be part of something. Individualism is not well seen here. There are many people, but we don't see it well. We look at them like, because they are not part of the group. And you can be part of many groups if you want. So, but when it comes of an accident like an earthquake, we all Mexicans get together and help. But after that, we go back to our own small groups, and we take care of those small groups, but not again about the rest of the people. So there is a study that I learned when I kind of held at the Food Lay Bank. Doreen showed us a study that showed that more than 80% of Americans tend to volunteer or to donate, but only 4% of Mexicans volunteer or donate. So we have a great gap, but also a great opportunity for us at least to learn your way, or at least that way, and develop it and have better communities. And probably we can change the image that we have before the world, that we are sitting with long mustaches and a big sombrero by a cactus. Because I had students from China when I worked in a university in Guadalajara, and that was my first encounter of a Mexican cliche that came from outside. The way they saw us, I was like, oh my God. I thought we were great, but I realized we are not, we're just people, you know what I mean? So, anyway, okay.
You were going to give some tips on
Yes.
how they can get along better.
The first part to do that is you need to learn. You need to forget about you learn about Mexicans and relearn. So you have to relearn anything, even things like this. Do you recognize this? Okay. Do you know what it means in Mexico? Are you ready for a bad word?
Yes.
Okay. It means fuck your mother, asshole. Chinga tu madre, cabrón, would be in Spanish. So, you use it like a funny thing, but...
Excuse me, but I will set the tone. Chinga tu madre, cabrón.
Thank you. So when you knock at the door like that, if they are not your close friends, probably they will like, who's knocking the door like that? I'm being insulted now. Or if you use your horn when driving, it's not a funny thing. Someone is being insulted, so look around, something probably happened around you. So please spread that word. So that is one thing. So learn details that are different from you. Another thing, you say, this is money for you. But for me, it's hurry up. This is money in Mexico. It's like you hold a coin, and you show it the coin, and you can put. I have a class, you can join the class. Anyway, so another thing, we Mexicans leave everything ambiguous. So you have to be or ask for specifics so you can avoid frustration. And you have to confirm more than once, even 15 minutes before. Okay? Another thing is, we don't say no, so our sí, our yes, might mean no 85% of the time. it doesn't connect to our brain that way. So when you see a vendor insisting on selling stuff to you, saying no gracias doesn't work. You have to say just gracias, which means no in that context. So, and do the hand or the face, gracias, gracias, and you will see that they leave. But if you say no gracias, they will insist and insist and insist. So it's just they know that. Or another, probably you have harassed some Mexicans starting a conversation, and we start by saying no. But that no means nothing. It's just the way we have to open conversation. So I can tell you, no, last night I went to the movies, and guess what? So that no has nothing to do there. But it's part of the opening, getting your attention. And don't assume that Mexicans are poor. Regarding to poor, in our mind, the concept of poor is different from yours. For example, I know you're used to have bigger houses. Bigger houses. We don't need bigger houses. There is no need. We live with that and we go fine with it. Of course, there are Mexicans with huge houses, with pools and stuff. Don't go far. You don't need to go farther away. You go to the rugby club and there are some tapatíos living there with, I remember once I visited once and I asked, where is everybody? I was expecting them to be at the pool at the entrance and they said, oh, they are in the pool by the kitchen. And I thought, oh my God, you have 2 pools. Yeah, and we use an elevator from the entrance to the kitchen on the 3rd floor. And I was like, oh my God. And that was Mexican people. And you live in a state that has the richest municipality in Mexico, which is Zapopan. So if you have visited, there are places where you go and you have to go through 3 different filters to enter. So we live in both extremes, and the gap is huge. And the other thing is, don't make faces, please. That's very, faces. Like for example, I won't say names, but I was once here, heating up chicken soup, Mexican chicken soup. If you have tried it, you see the vegetables come in big chunks because we don't want them to dissolve as they boil. So they are, in small pieces. So I heat it up, and it was an American lady, and she asked me, what's that? I said, chicken soup, Mexican chicken soup. Oh, and I'm Mexican, I offer, and I will offer you things 5 times probably. So I would say, would you like some? And this is more or less what she did. No, Mexican food, no. And she left. So for me, it was like, but I'm about to eat that. What did you make? This is to my food, it's what I am used to. If you don't like it, perfect. You don't have to like it. A smile and say no. Thank you. Or take it and take it with you. You want to throw it away because you don't dare to drink it, to eat it? Fine, but don't let us see it. Because we will think that you don't like us and that we are being rejected. And that's important to us, not to feel unliked and rejected. And the last thing I want to say, handling money or giving documents. Please give it, if you're going to pay cash, give it to the hand of people. Do not put it on the counter. That's rude to us. Do not let it fall. Oh my God, it makes me want to slap people when they do that. And I know you don't mean rude. No. I know that if I do that to you, you will be okay because it's what it is for you. But for us, that's really rude. So give it to the hand and get the change to the hand. Are you busy with both hands? Don't worry. You have a bag here. So take all the coins, put them on the counter. If you're going to pay a small amount of money, choose the coins you need. And if you cannot carry them to give them direct to the hand, then drag them towards the person and you can say perdón. And the perdón will solve the problem. You won't look rude at all. So those are small things that you need to learn. But you need to be open to see. For example, in my classes, I have received some opinions saying, for example, you are teaching this or you are telling us this, but I go outside and I don't see anybody doing it. Or nobody tells me that word, or nobody uses that, this, for example. But we want because we know you don't know it. You don't have to. But now that you're here, I hope you learn it and notice how we do it and how we speak and so you can get involved and it will be easier for you. And the goal here, to avoid frustration. Because that's what could make your life miserable or awesome, Anyway, so that is about the specifics. And the general things, please Sorry.
As you can see, Mexicans like to speak a lot too. Now, when we were brainstorming this session, I said, I think there's a few things that the Mexican people could do to make it more or less frustrating for Americans and Canadians, or anybody that's not a native here. Number one, if I am speaking Spanish to a Mexican, I wish they would speak Spanish back. I can't tell you how many times in a restaurant or a store or whatever, I speak Spanish and they speak English back. That's not helping me learn it. They work in a restaurant, they're getting plenty of practice. I know so many people not even trying to learn Spanish, so they can practice with those people. Also, the assumption is that all gringos are rich. We're not all rich. There's quite a number of people that move down here because they can't afford to retire in the United States. So this idea that there's a gringo price and a Mexican price for things, I think it's rude. I think it causes a cultural divide, and yes, I know they're trying to get those few more pesos, and they maybe could get
That's not
some.
only Mexico, it's everywhere. Wherever you go, they look at you and it's just
In the United States, the price tends to be a price is a price. So, it would be really rude to offer someone a different price because we like things to be very specific. They like things to be very loosey-goosey. So if Mexicans could learn to give us a set time and date and location. Less of us complaining that the plumber never showed up or the electrician was 2 hours late. Mark and I have actually had very good luck, and our workmen have almost always been on time, and they often text us to say they're running late, but I know that's not always the case. But like Alfredo said, if we all could lock that in, there would be less frustration on both sides. Does anybody have any suggestions for what Mexicans do to make things easier, or expats? Sir?
Okay. My name is Angel Cabrera. I'm Mexican. I lived here for 21 years. Then I moved to the United States illegally. I crossed the river. I made the American dream. I'm an American citizen. So I have experience on both worlds. Okay? I had to modify my personality in the United States because it got me in trouble. Okay? I was sexually accused because I invaded the lady's personal space. I never touched her. Also, I have moved, because I lived there for 40-something years, I have more American mentality. I'm more responsible. I honor my work. I'm very work ethic, which that's what I'm expecting here from Mexico. Okay? But what I have seen is all expats, including me, we bring our previous lifestyle into here. And it's not easy to change. It drives me crazy. The government protocol and also responsibility. Like they saw, I did that in an hour, 2 hours later they're coming. So it drives me something. So we need to adjust. Mainly, try to forget the past lifestyle.
So Angel, what recommendation you can give us?
Like what?
What recommendation can you provide us to be better?
As an American or expat?
Both.
Both, okay? Try to forget a little your previous lifestyle. And here, it's not perfect. The technology is way behind. The processes are way behind. So it's just emerged into this country. Learn that our customs, how we treat, yes, we're very, very helpful. We care, we have workers, but we have ways that it has taken centuries.
Thank you, Angel. Thank you. Any other recommendation can you provide us to be better?
So my recommendation is that we can learn to be patient. I mean, we're here as guests in another culture, another country, and we can learn to be patient with the local customs and ways of doing things, and I think that's an appropriate thing for us to do.
Thank you. So she's recommending all of us to be patient. Patient. I will keep that one. That's important. So you can, if you slow down, you can see what's happening around you. And because I bet you're missing a lot of the fun that is happening among Mexicans. And by far, I don't not only mean fun with strict meaning, but I also mean news that are important. That what's going on here, probably not everybody knows, and you should know because you live here. Things that the locals are doing and that you can probably participate. So if you have patience, you can slow down and look around and ask.
Well, one of the things, I'd like to, first of all, just say, I don't feel I'm a guest. I'm an immigrant to Mexico, and I'm here permanently. And if we called every foreign-born person in the state a guest, things wouldn't work. The thing I noticed, and I wish you had brought, is the difference in expressing things. One of the things I noticed, I had trouble with a neighbor next door. They had a band practice practically on my roof. I went, and as an American, I let out my anger as much as I could in Spanish. And I didn't get anywhere, and then I asked a Mexican friend to go and talk to them for me. And he smiled, and he talked to them, and they were both smiling, and there was no loud voices. Whereas we in the United States tend to believe, say it like it is, and show our anger very verbally, whereas Mexicans don't.
We're going to have to cut this off because we have to wrap up, and then there's going to be a question and answer session, so we'll have time to address these things, but Marissa's going to give us the summary.
Well, first of all, I want to recognize your experience as a conductor between multicultural or intercultural issues. Thank you for your profession. For a Mexican-American citizen, that experience. Well, yes, this is something that we need to learn in this time. Now we have the consciousness to recognize that our belief system has to change, because more quickly than ever, we are fusioning around the world. Thank God, because then the frontiers doesn't have to exist. We are human beings in this earth. We have to be tolerant, we have to recognize that we became from different origins, we have different dreams, and we have different knowledge instead of the ignorance that we have, all of us have. So we need to realize that we need to learn and comprehend. I know this is hard for you because dogs are dogs and they are bark, and we like dogs, and we like parties, and we like having a party at 3 a.m. or maybe 7 a.m. Be my guest at Christmas at my house. But yes, we give you some things very important. We didn't talk about this, but one thing that astonished me as a grief counselor was that people from other countries dies alone, and we find out 3 days before. After. I practiced that like 5 times, I swear. And it was like how come nobody noticed? 5 days, 3 days, nobody called? Nobody was worried? And in Mexico does not happen that frequent. And that's why Mexican families is going to try to adopt you, because they are worried about you. You need something for the super? Are you okay? You need to look? Would you like to come? Oh, you're in bed. And if you say, and you just stay in the party for 1 hour or 2, that's rude for us. I know we have to take that. But for us, it's like, oh, they don't want to be with me? They don't like me? That's why they didn't stay in the party? No? So, you don't have to stay. you don't want, or you don't feel comfortable, that's for sure. But we need to be tolerant, we need to understand, we need to talk about it, but most of that, we need to feel that. We need to express that. We need to have time to talk about it. Because we need to realize that everyone, it doesn't matter the language that you have, it doesn't matter where your grandpa came from, it doesn't matter where you are running off from, all of us are one. And we need to help each other in order to be in peace.
I just want to add that I wish we would evolve and learn that we all are one. We're so much alike that why look at the difference? Look at we all are one.
I like that, but as I said before, I don't believe in mixing. I don't believe in, what is the word? Assimilation. Because assimilation would mean that you come here, you forget your language and speak only Spanish, and you will be also launching cohetes on weekends, you know? You will be all over the rest. But you never do that, and we are not expecting you to do that. So I think the main point here is recognize the differences, and if I need to adapt myself to do some things out there, outside of my home, then do it. You don't have to do it for the rest of your life, just for what you need. It's not being hypocritical, pragmatical, and useful, because those differences will be there always.
When I taught cross-cultural communication, I used to say, forget treating others as you want to be treated, and learn how they want to be treated, and treat them that way. Because very often, what is polite in your culture is impolite or hurtful in another's.
You heard it.
I love what you said. I need some guidance from all of you. This business of we want to leave the party before we good. Can you offer us a way that we can erase it? Because I can't stay at parties as long as people do it here.
No, you just say, oh, I have to go, and that's it. It's not about that.
Oh, next day,
I'm so honored to be invited.
next day, you can call and say, hey, how did it go at the end? I hope you had fun. I'm sorry that I had to leave, but tell me how, so people will be, so you are showing interest. So remember, so we are light.
Dance a little 5 minutes more and then go.
First of all, one thing you all so helpful to me. I tried dealing with like Mexican customs, but it wasn't this, the nuances. And one that when I first got here, I noticed that locals always said, good morning, good afternoon, strangers asking each other. And so I thought, okay, I got this, it's really good. I finally started when get that rolled on, But I get a sense that was seem really rude to not do that, and they don't.
It depends on where you are. This is a small town, and traditions are more noticeable than in big cities. In big cities, if you say good day on the street, they will look at you like you are crazy. But here, if you say good day, buenos días, or any of those, you will get an answer back. If you don't, it's okay. I mean, not everybody does that, especially youngsters are not doing that. But there is one thing you should know. We don't say hola on the street. We say adios. We say hola here because you say hola, so we answer hola. But if I'm not stopping to talk to you outside, let's say Chapala, say adios, and we will answer adios because that's our way. Hola is fine. We adapt ourselves to that. It's not that.
I play a sport where I see the same people over and over. Mostly Mexican men. And I got injured in one day playing, by someone I know, and he never once said, "How are you?" or "I'm sorry, I hurt you." And I felt really offended. Like, I thought he should have inquired about my well-being. Is that cultural? Is that cultural? Is he an asshole? Am I?
All of the above. No, we are generalizing here. Not everybody is the way we are explaining here. So yeah, there are also asshole Mexicans, like in everywhere in the world, and we have to deal with that too. Probably we might be assholes sometimes, sorry for the words, sometimes ourselves and we don't notice. But, well, I don't know more of the context, but probably he should have asked. There's another thing that we Mexicans don't try to avoid.
It's not cultural.
It's not cultural, it's just the personality of the people.
Okay, thank you.
But lo siento is a word that we use a lot more as Americans, I'm sorry, and it is a lesser used word here. Like you might say if you're stepping in front of somebody, I'm sorry, whereas they would say with permission, confirmation. Right? They use sorries very heavily, I mean, around death or, human-based stuff. Yeah.
I was injured on the ground and I thought, "Are you okay?" would be appropriate.
Probably, or maybe he didn't know the language English, so probably,
He does.
I don't know.
Or maybe,
And I speak Spanish, and he knows them.
or maybe we are afraid that you demand us. That you suck. Sue us.
First of all, let me say that I'm an expat on a budget who is here because I can afford to live better and I don't speak Spanish, and one of the reasons I'm here is because of all three of that. So I include myself in my question. I wonder though, with so many people coming here, because of expenses in the States where they can live 1,000 times better than they can at home, and even what I pay for an apartment, which I consider really cheap for what I get, is not cheap for you people, and more people, especially with the economy in the States being, inflationary. I wonder, how does it occur to a Mexican that all of us from the States are moving here because we can live 1,000 times better than we can on what we sold our house for? I mean, to me, that kind of bothers me a little, and I'm one of the people that's causing the problem.
Everybody has an opinion. So for example, you can say that for restaurants or the local economy, that money is getting it, and it's developing, and businesses are growing, and even people are investing in things probably they didn't before. But in other places, they don't care. In other places, they try to go against it. Let me say something about local, for example. There are some Mexicans, a big bunch of them, that they believe, and they are my age, more or less, 50s, 40s, they believe that the gringos have taken away the stuff they deserve from them. Like what? LCS, for example. There are people who come and say, "You took from us. We inherited this place. We are the ones who are supposed to use it." No, it's not you shouldn't be a gringo club. So there is that part of Mexicans that see it that way. But there are other Mexicans, like me, for example, although I'm not from here, I've been here for 5 years. I don't see it that way because I don't have the story. So for me, it's not a problem. The only thing I have, no, it's not the only thing. One of the things I have complained in the past, I don't care anymore, is if I go to a restaurant and there are Mexicans in one table and Americans or Canadians or whatever, foreigners. In another one, people from here know that you will tip better, so they will serve you faster. But again, I'm not generalizing. There are restaurants that still serve us the same way they serve you. So if you notice that on weekends, Tapatíos from Guadalajara, Tapatío is a person who was born in Guadalajara, come here, they don't go to the same restaurants you go. They go to a specific other ones. Tango gets full by Tapatíos on the weekends, for example, because they know, or probably first, they might not know the existence of the restaurants you love. The second, the food they serve, it's for you. It's very different. So, so probably I don't want to try that. I want to try what I like. So I go to Tango or to San Juan Cosalá, Piedra Barrenada for seafood. So it varies, it depends. If you behave rude with us, or you don't try to see how we deal with the stuff and give us a space to do that, probably we will look at you bad. And I promise you that 90% of the Mexicans won't say anything. Even if you're doing something wrong, we won't say anything because that's rude to say something. We will maybe turn around and, like I said, say pinches gringos. But no. But yeah, because we don't confront, we hate confrontation. We will avoid confrontation. That's why when someone you are supposed to see at 9 today and it's 11 and the person never show up and you call and they don't answer, they know you're upset because they did wrong. So they won't call you. They won't answer because they want to avoid confrontation. They will wait until they consider you are not upset and they will come back to you. I'm generalizing again, but that works. I have done that. And not only to foreigners, to my Mexican fellows. Because that's how, and also, you decided to come and live in a state, this state, we are not direct. Being direct is very rude. So we go around the bushes. We have perfected the art of going around the bushes.
This gentleman mentioned personal space. What would you consider the personal space when you're talking to somebody?
Oh, it's shorter than yours, for sure. But also, not everybody likes to be close or that close to people. So let me say, if you want to talk to us, notice when we speak among Mexicans, when we don't want to be that close, we tend to speak in an angle, not direct, like in an angle. So that gives us a space, and that gives you a space. So you should do that, and we automatically, like a reflection act. We do this, the mirror speaking. We do that. We put ourselves that way and start talking. So that also, but we are very into online hugging and kissing on the cheek. Not everybody, but most people. And now with COVID, that went down a little or a lot. But there are people going back to that because it's in our blood. So it's true.
Another comment. If you interact with a Mexican, okay, on a regular basis, and they start picking on you, that means you're welcome into the group.
All the way in the back.
Okay, the first time we came to Mexico 20 years ago, we knew no one here, nothing. And we hired Carlos Soto, a local taxi driver who was born here, raised his family here. And we asked him if he would take us to Guadalajara. And on the way in, we said, could you drive us where there are guides to the city? And he said, you don't need that. I'll be your guide. Well, my husband and I looked at each other and we said, oh, this poor cab driver, what does he know? We want a cultural, historic guide. Well, with that, he reaches down on the floor in front of the driver's seat. He has a stack of history books on Mexico. He said, what do you want to know? And then he took us, he said, first I have to go home and make a stop. He went home, he put on a very nice, clean white shirt, slicked his hair back, and he said, I want to be presentable when I take you to the city. And then he took us, he got out of the car with us, and we spent the entire day with him. It was a magnificent tour. He knew every monument, every building, all of the history. At the end of the week, when we didn't rent a car because we didn't know the driving rules. At the end of the week, we felt very comfortable with him, and we said, Carlos, we want to move here, but are we going to be resented by the Mexican community as the rich Americans coming? He says, oh, no, 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 no. He said, if you weren't here, I couldn't support my family. I don't want to live in Mexico City or Guadalajara. I want to raise my family here, but make a decent living. He said, so having all the foreigners here give me support to raise a family. So he says, tell all your friends to come. So that was our introduction, and I had to leave all my prejudice at home starting that day.
Thank you. Actually, yeah, your influence has, since the 40s, since the 40s, have shaped this town as a very different. Yeah, my opinion, my personal opinion is this town is not Mexico, it's,
Gringo, yeah.
no, I wouldn't call it, yeah, but I wouldn't call it gringo. Yeah, Monterrey people, they would love to be gringos. If they could, sorry. But if they could, they would do that.
Thank you, everybody, for your participation. We went way over time, so I'm going to bring Phil back up. Thank you so much.